Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Now, with the conclusion of the 2015 general elections, Nigeria's political sphere presents a new terrain whereby some ordinarily isolated political actions and considerations may come into focus due to the impact they can make all over the country. Precisely what we're talking about is the theater of politics in the National Assembly, with the impending change of guards and leadership and an institution that bipartisan politics should be the order of the day. Now, from the 16-year dominance that featured the People's Democratic Party at the helm of affairs, the National Assembly will, effective from the advent of the 8th National Assembly, be under the All Progressives Congress. APC will hold sway, and judging from its commanding membership in the new legislature. Therefore, without any gainsaying, the paradigm for political considerations will shift, at least for the next 4 years. Now, as the nation looks forward to vibrancy in the 8th session, the Nigerian Institute of Legislative Studies held an induction course for the incoming legislators. Director General of the Institute expressed commitment to making sure that members of the 8th Assembly perform maximally with organizing periodic trainings for them on legislative procedures. The idea is to boost the level of parliamentary performance of lawmakers to a measurable standard of professional competence to guide effective and efficient governance. Now, the new assembly is therefore expected to promote national integration and participatory democracy through inclusiveness, freedom, equality, justice, transparency, accountability, the rule of law, equitable use of the national resources, and equal opportunities for all in order to secure maximum well-being of the citizenry. Now, as the two levels of the National Assembly are right now engaged in the search for new leadership of the 8th Assembly, what are they going to do to provide Nigerians with adequate representation? These are some of the issues we'll be talking about tonight with a distinguished panel. But first, let's get to see this report by Adamu Sambu.
On the 29th of this month, political power is going to be transferred from an incumbent ruling party to an opposition party, the first in post-independence Nigeria. When that happens, the legislature, a critical component of democracy, is expected to take far-reaching decisions in support of the new administration towards repositioning the nation and strengthening democratic institutions for good governance and effective service delivery to Nigerians. This can be done through its constitutional functions of lawmaking, oversight, and representation. Already, the President-elect Muhammadu Buhari, taking advantage of the 5-day induction program for the incoming lawmakers, had a rare opportunity of addressing both the senators and members-elect. Apart from committing himself to working with them as development partners, General Buhari outlined a 10-point agenda of the incoming regime. These include genocide and insurgency, devastation, and environmental degradation in the Niger Delta area, decline in revenues, endemic corruption, and poor power supply. Others are poor industrialization, high level of unemployment, high cost of governance, erosion of social services, and lack of development in the agriculture and solid mineral sectors.
I see these developmental challenges as the mission of my presidency. I need the support of the members of the National Assembly on the battlefront as champions of good governance and development and as warriors for change. Together, we can make this nation great. Therefore, my mission to bring integrity into governance will better succeed if complemented with a strong culture of transparent oversight.
In what appears as a demonstration of confidence in the leadership of General Buhari, both the incoming and current lawmakers describe his address as promising and reassuring.
What we have seen today is a sign that we are on the path of hope. with a rekindled optimism. And there is every indication that light has come to the end of the tunnel.
I believe that the 8th Assembly will do everything humanly possible to cooperate with him to drive this nation to prosperity.
We will give him unconditional support to ensure that the kind of change he's expecting, we will give him the opportunity that this change should be made. More especially the area of security. He has mentioned what is happening in the Northeast and the Northwest and even in the Niger Delta. That is to show that he is nationalistic in nature.
And the electorates want to see the Nigerian nation they want. And in order to do that, we will have to cooperate. It doesn't matter whether he asks for it or not. That is our work and we are supposed to do it for the sake of our constituency, for the sake of Nigeria as a whole, for the sake of Africa.
What he stands for is basically what we also stand for, and the change is what we have clamored for. And Nigerians should expect development. Nigerians should expect performance from us.
I will be one of those who will give him 100% support because this nation needs change. As change has come, and this 8th National Assembly, I'm also sure, will support the president in all his bids.
It shows that Buhari is willing and ready to carry us along, and we are ready to work with him and we support him for the interest of Nigeria, for the betterment of Nigerian people.
To these social analysts, however, the expectations of the lawmakers are beyond supporting the executive.
Lawmakers have been too focused on making money for themselves. We have one of the highest paid legislatures in the world, and our economy does not justify the type of huge expenditure we make on the legislature. I think it's important that the incoming legislature realizes that they are not there to make money. They are there to contribute their own quota towards sustaining our democracy.
One problem that seems to have defied solution in Nigeria is the high turnover rate of lawmakers. The average return rate of the National Assembly members is put at only about 30%.
The reason why we want to ensure that we have, the legislature institutionalized is to avoid this kind of problems.
Whether the 5-day induction program put in place by the National Assembly will have significant impact on legislative functions in the 8th Assembly, only time will tell. In Abuja, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Well, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let me first introduce our guest to you. We'd like to welcome to this program distinguished Senator Itai Enang, who is Chairman, Senate Committee on Rules and Business. Thanks for being with us here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're also joined tonight by Honorable Nina Elendu KJ, who is Chairman, House Committee on Foreign Affairs. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'd like to also welcome to this program Honorable Babangida Malumfashi, who's a member of the Committee on Finance. Thanks for being here. And we're also joined tonight by Senator-elect Bala Ibn Allah, who's from Kebbi State. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Somewhere at the appropriate time on this program, you will have an opportunity to be part of it. You can join in with your questions or comments on the issues at stake. The platforms will be on your screen. Let me just quickly say, for those who will be phoning in, do us a favor. If you do get through, turn down the volume of your TV. That way we'll avoid the hurlback or the echo. That's for those who will be calling in at the appropriate time. For others, of course, the various platforms through which you could be part of this program, as I said earlier, would be on your screens, and you can take advantage of that. Call in with your questions or your comments on the issues at stake, and our distinguished guests here will be very willing to take on those issues that you might raise. Once again, welcome to NTA Tuesday Live. Let's start from the very top and see that the general elections have been concluded now, and the 8th Assembly, we're waiting for it to be inaugurated. Let me begin by asking Senator Itai Enang, how prepared do you think the members of the National Assembly are for the 8th Assembly?
That is the incoming members?
Yes.
Yes. The incoming members are very prepared. One, they have been elected. Two, they have been given their certificates of return. Three, they have been given their induction. Four, they are aware of what they need to come with. They need to come with their certificate of return, then the code of conduct, then they'll be sworn in. When they're sworn in, they'll now be able to determine, to set their agenda. And I believe that all of them who are elected, they have been found worthy to represent their people and qualified in the eyes of their people and the law to represent their people. So I believe that they are ready. You have a high rate of return. Some members are returning. Some people are joining afresh from home. Some are joining from the Senate. Some of the senators are coming from the House of Representatives. Some are coming from the Houses of Assembly, and some are coming as governors. Some are coming from various backgrounds. So I think they're very ready to start. And we in the National Assembly, the management and the present National Assembly, led by distinguished Senator David Mark and Aminu Tambawal, have prepared the sufficient ground for them to be received and for them to start off very well.
Okay, we'll still come to you. Let's go to Honorable Nina Okeji. It's said that Nigeria perhaps has the highest turnover rate of lawmakers. And while the induction course was going on for new members, the media took time out to talk to some of them. And we had very interesting responses. And this has led Nigerians to worry that it would seem that we will spend a considerable amount of time before these new members will learn the ropes of lawmaking. What do you say to that?
Oh, well, obviously we have a very high attrition rate, and they attempted to bring them up to scratch with the induction courses. But there's something that we always say in the legislature, that the only thing that prepares you for work in the legislature is actually time in the legislature. And so, yes, we will be coming to this 8th Assembly with a dearth of experience. Unfortunately, which is also something that the 7th Assembly tried to do, which was to try e-archiving, wherein there was some kind of repository of institutional knowledge, especially with the Institute of Legislative Studies and so on and so forth, to try to keep the new members up to scratch. Now, the Institute of Legislative Studies as well has said that periodically there will be training courses to try to get the new members up to scratch. It is evident that the executive arm of government has a wide array of people of stellar quality that they can actually bring onto the executive arm of government. The judiciary, ditto for the judiciary, where they have people who have been there for a very long time. But it is going to be pretty challenging because you will need the experience. And so there are certain people who have come in, especially into the Senate. They're very lucky because they have a lot of cross-dressers. They have a lot of people who are coming in from the executive arm of government. They have a lot of people who are coming in from the House of Representatives. And then they have quite a few of our colleagues who are very experienced who are joining them in the Senate. But in the House of Representatives, yes, there will be some challenges. But I'm sure that, with time, we'll mitigate those challenges. And with all the training that is planned, I'm sure that they will eventually come up to scratch. But yes, we'll start with the
all right, let's hear your views on this, Honorable Babangida Malufashi.
Well, just to add to what she has just, my colleague has just said, you see, in addition to the induction program, which took about 4 days, I think sufficient materials were also provided by the Institute, which will enable most of the members to go through them and learn some of the processes. And 2, even though we have a lot of very high turnover in the House, but some of them move from the House of Assembly, and I think we have more than experienced members presently in the House that will be able to manage most of the committees, which is part of the key function of the legislature.
All right, Honorable Bala Ibn Allah, Senator-elect, this, well, you're not new to the legislature, haven't been in the House for a while, and taking a break and coming back now to the Senate.
Yeah, and what do you expect from me? Because there is no question for me, but I would say that the legislature is one of the most grossly misunderstood institutions in the democratic setup in this country, and a lot of people aspire to get there without actually knowing what it involves. When we talk of legislature, it's lawmaking, and lawmaking fundamentally is built, based on experience. I remember my friend Italian will remember that when we were in the House, for the 8 years that we have stayed in the House, virtually the entire lawmaking process, consideration of report and the rest, he will tell you, we were less than 16, doing this job.
Out of 360.
Out of 360.
We were less than 16.
We were less than 16. And we knew what pressure we went through to put most of the things in place to do that. Most of the times I'm in his office quarreling with him over why certain things should not be scheduled in order to get them prepared. But I think with time, our democracy will take care of the situation, because those living will go and tell their stories of why, how long they have stayed and what they were able to do. And then those remaining inside, for example, will have opportunity equally to tell those coming in. As you can see from the lectures that were delivered by the Institute, mostly were those who are from the House and the Senate, and who took part in even building the Institute itself. Myself and Itaenang, I'm very sure, will claim credit for the establishment of that Institute in the National Assembly.
Now look at it this way, still talking about the high turnover rate of lawmakers here. It is said that part of the problem is the way we see politics, where a lot of people see it as where to go and enjoy the spoils of office, for instance. And you have one person in the legislature for just 4 years, and shortly after that, from a different part of his constituency, they say, look, it's now our turn. You have done your turn, so move over. And these are agreements that still subsist till today. And this problem might not go away for a long time.
Okay, let me say here that if you remember, I said it's an institution that is grossly misunderstood. The issue of turn, as we talk about turn in this country, we all know the reasons. And the reasons are not far away from the fact that people occupy office and then grossly abuse the office, to the benefit of either their community or whatever, against the oath of office that they have taken. I have always reiterated this issue. And because of the unique nature of the country, it's very difficult to make people understand that there is the need to sustain a member, or a senator in the National Assembly for the purpose of growing the institution. They will not understand. More so when it has to do with a situation where you get into the House or into the Senate, and you are lucky, maybe because you are going to be there over a period of 4 years, your salary and allowances are flowing, so people are ready to give you loan to buy a big car and the rest. And then after 4 years, the car is in the market for sale, and that's why when people say legislators are there to make money for themselves, I laugh. I have left the institution for 4 years before coming back. I deliberately did so, so that people will understand that the way they see the legislature from outside is not how it is when you get there.
All right.
And don't forget that most of those who came and stayed 4 years and left were those who were thinking that coming into the place they can make a difference, and therefore they can make so much money to make the difference, only to discover that that is not the position.
Okay. So taking a cue from that, Senator Itaenang, how would you respond to calls that it should be on a part-time basis? Maybe that would make it less attractive of the question of it's our turn to get the goodies.
I don't accept that the legislature should be on part-time basis. I think it is the way the public sees the legislature and the legislators, the way they perceive, and the way some legislators carry themselves. Because the legislature is the most, in my presentation at the induction of new senators and members-elect, I submitted that the legislature is the most cerebral arm of government, is the most intellectually demanding arm of government. It is for lawmaking and lawmaking alone. A little part, lawmaking is about 70%, representation is about 20%, and the other ones 10%.
but the most aspect of it is making of laws. And so you go there prepared to work harder than a lawyer, prepared to work harder than a judge. You get there appreciating that when you see the volume of laws, when we go to court, we've made an electoral act, we've amended the constitution. You are going to court to advocate on a law that has been made. Who made the law? It is the legislature. And so a lot of people who seek to come to the legislature, and a lot of people who vote for people to come to the legislature, do not think that these people are going to do intellectual work. I submit, without fear of contradiction, that the legislature is the number one arm of government, and it is so reflected in the Constitution. The executive is the second and number two arm of government. It is so reflected in the Constitution. And the judiciary is the number three arm of government, the most prime arm of government. Therefore, you cannot make it part-time, because it is an arm of government that churns out the law that governs all aspects of the society: human rights, nuclear technology, all sectors, the Constitution. When you have people go have a case and go to court, the High Court or Federal High Court or State High Court or the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, what are they going for? They are going for over and about the law that is made by the legislature. When you are not satisfied, you go to the Court of Appeal. You are going to talk about you are dissatisfied the way the High Court interpreted and applied the law that is made by the legislature. This High Court of Appeal is presided over by a panel of 3 justices, and if it is a constitutional matter, 5 justices. Now, when you are dissatisfied, you are taking that matter to the courts, to the Supreme Court. And when you take it to the Supreme Court, what are you going to do? You are going to canvass the law that is made by the legislature. So the legislature is expected, with respect to their lordships at the Supreme Court, their lordships at the Court of Appeal, my lord, the justices of the judges of the High Court, the legislature is expected to be higher intellectually, to be more cerebral, to be more careful, to be more studious, to know what law did we make last year, what is the law on the different aspects on this matter, what can we make another law on the matter, is this law we are going to make a law that can apply to the that we have powers to make. Today in the Senate, we passed the Violence Against Persons Act, and there was the series of other bills. We passed it, and in the submission, when the women all over the country came, we've passed it. But I submitted, and it has been agreed and adopted in the submission of the committee, a member of the Committee on Judiciary, that law can only apply in the Federal Capital Territory. Because if you go to Akwa Ibom State, where I represent, there is the law on the matter. We in the National Assembly cannot make law on criminal matters for Akwa Ibom, Kebbi, Abia, and Katsina states. Those states have their own state houses of assembly. They make law. So when a bill like that comes, you have to know as a legislature, what is our powers? What is the constitutional limitation? Can we do it? Yes, we're a legislature. Can you do anything? And then you also have to know, yes, a lot of people came to the legislature, some governors with respect. Some thought that when they come, they will be immune from prosecution. No, the legislature is just for law making, and you are the person bound by the law, and you make the law. You are the very first person to be bound by that law. Therefore, the legislature cannot be made part-time, because it is the most engaging arm of government.
All right, Senator, you did use the term expected to be more cerebral, expected to be more careful.
It is, and those who do not.
All right, but going by that, Honorable Nina Elindu Ukeji, going by what we have seen over the years, this expectation, has it been justified? Because Senator Itainang did say that some of the problems are attributable to the character and behavior of some legislators when they get into the assembly.
Well, he also said, Senator Ibn Nala also said that the National Assembly is one of the most misunderstood arms of government. Now, and he said it is supposed to be very cerebral. Now, the people that are sent to the National Assembly, and it's very interesting that he also said that they are all qualified in the eyes of their constituencies to have done that. Now, it would have
eyes of the law.
In the eyes of the law. But then it would have to be a constituency that understands the core functions of the National Assembly. Now, if that constituency does not understand that 70% of the core functions of the legislature is actually making laws, and you send somebody who comes out and they say, oh, he's very friendly with the people in the constituency, he's a philanthropist. Now, with the utmost respect, being very generous and being a philanthropist does not necessarily go hand in hand with being very cerebral. And so if the yardstick that the constituency used in sending a person who is very friendly with, say, all the traditional rulers, for instance, and doesn't really have the mental capacity to do the cerebral work, you cannot begrudge that constituency for their yardstick for measuring a person who they sent to the National Assembly. And that is the reason why he has said that the National Assembly is one of the most misunderstood institutions of government, because it is actually a place that is very cerebral. It's a place where we make laws. It's a place where we make the laws that govern and guide the way in which all Nigerians live, and therefore the yardstick for measuring the people that are sent to the National Assembly should be totally different from the yardsticks that are used to measure. For instance, in certain constituencies, they still think that legislators are supposed to build roads, build schools, and so they confuse the functions of the legislature
and also provide jobs.
And provide jobs, absolutely.
Right.
And so they confuse, of course, so if those are the yardsticks used for measuring and sending the people to the National Assembly, little wonder that he uses the word supposed very advisedly.
Now, so if this would stem from a misunderstanding of the role of the legislature, and people pick their representatives based on misconceptions, I'll tell you one very popular one. Apart from building roads, hospitals, and creating jobs, another popular one is having so much money to give around because there's jumbo pay in the National Assembly. Is that true, Honorable?
Well, it's not true.
Right.
Why I would say it's not true is that as a member House of Representatives, our salary is less than 1 million naira. Any other allowance that is paid is a running cost for the running of the office, the engagement you have in the National Assembly. But what is happening with most of the new members is that when somebody is sworn in as a member in the National Assembly, you see a lot of banks go around submitting forms to most of these new members, and at will, within 24 hours, you can obtain a loan of 100 million. That's why in most cases, some of the members, throughout the period of their tenure, they will not be able to pay back the loan. So if you want somebody to obtain a loan of 100 million naira, somebody that left his constituency with less than 500,000 naira net worth, and suddenly within less than a week or month, you go approach the bank and you obtain a loan of 100 million. The assumption generally is that maybe the money is being provided by the National Assembly, not knowing that somebody is using his position to obtain a loan. So this misunderstanding is one of the key areas that we need to enlighten our people. Let people separate what the legislator earned and what he was able to assess as a member of the National Assembly.
Well, Senator-elect, from the records we have here, just about 70 senators and 250 members of the House of Reps are not returning to the National Assembly. That's a pretty high number. And if you find out why some of them are, it's either they have moved from one party to the other, or the people who sent them there have decided that it's either they have not fulfilled those issues, those reasons why they sent them there in the first place, and which, of course, we have agreed might be based on some misconceptions, and they've swept them out. They've not been able to provide infrastructure. They've not been able to dole around a lot of money, even though they look at some of them that within a short space of time they live in big, which might just be as a result of what your colleague has just explained. how do we begin to make the people understand what the legislature is?
It's going to be pretty difficult given the circumstances of our time and then the nature of the society we represent. Let's be honest, let's be sincere. Now, I don't know of some parts of the country, but I think my little study have shown that in some parts, this politics is like a business. Somebody sits down, float a political party, incur expenses on your behalf, send you to National Assembly, and then he expects that if you are giving salary of 1 million, at least he knows that the salary is 1 million. And then he tells you, okay, 400,000 must be deposited. Then the next thing you receive a letter telling you that there is going to be a luncheon somewhere and you have to attend and give. And that's why you see, 1 month after or 6 months after leaving the National Assembly, Italian will tell you, they will still come back to you who is even in the National Assembly to say, please, my child can't go to school. Now this is somebody that throughout his stay in the for 4 years in the Senate or in the House, allegations are that he has access to huge money. I will tell you one interesting story. I went to a mechanic just to pump my tire. Nobody knew that I was a legislator. And by the side, somebody was saying that late Aradua, of blessed memory, ordered that some money be put in Ghana must go, and they were going from house to house giving, and that those members who were found absent in their houses are now in front of Asorok trying to get. So you can see some ridiculous stories, you know, coming from everywhere. So if once the issue revolves around money, and then the thinking that money is going to flow from somewhere, everyone will go for it. More especially when the distribution of income in the country has not been specifically, you know, provided for by the structure of governance we run in the country. And don't forget, in the executive, apart from the president and the vice president, no any other person is elected into the office. But the entire 360 members of the House of Representatives have a constituency, and those are the people who elected into the office. And so it is with the Senate. So when Itanang was making that analysis to tell you why it is number one or number two, it is because the desire and the request by the electors to hold you accountable rests more on the Senate and the House, based on the fact that they are elected people. But you see, if you elect a president and you elect a vice president, you may end up for the whole of 4 years without even seeing him, except on telly. If he is passing in front of your village, security people will keep you inside your house until he passes. But the legislature must always go back to his constituency. And even where he chooses to stay in Abuja, let us even assume it is possible. You understand? People still come to Abuja because, let me tell you one interesting aspect. Even the constituents from your place who are living in Abuja sees it as your responsibility as a member or senator to pay their house rent and the rest. So there are a lot of complications. So it is very difficult to meet these requests and the dynamics of what is happening. So at the end of the day, after 4 years, you will have offended 1,001 people who are not even willing, to even look at your face. That is the truth. And so it's very difficult. That's why I say this is a cause of our time.
Okay, but if I might just expand that a little, it's also a sign of the times and the way we do our politics that whether we like it or not, we still see this as sharing, in quotes, of the spoils of office. For instance, Senator Itainam, the APC will now form a majority in the National Assembly. This used to be the exclusive preserve of the PDP since Nigeria returned to democracy. And yet, the 8th Assembly is yet to be, inaugurated. Already, we have all kinds of groups, drawing up expected leadership, pattern of leadership. Some groups coming up and saying, look, we deserve to have this office from our zone. And you look at some of the arguments, it's not based on anything except that, no, we need to have a share of this. What kind of pattern of leadership are you looking at in the 8th Assembly?
I'm looking at a leadership that is going to be disciplined in the manner of emergence. Disciplined in terms of the fact that there is always, for the political parties, a concept of one zoning, to making sure that all sections of the country feel a sense of belonging. Right now, we've had emerging the president-elect, General Muhammadu Buhari, from the northeast, from the northwest, I beg your pardon. Then we have the vice president emerging from the southwest. The other offices are that of the president of the Senate, who is number 3 citizen. The number 4 is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, followed by the Deputy Senate President, followed by the Deputy Speaker. These are 6 offices. Now, all things being equal, they should go through all the 6 geopolitical zones, because what happens in the judiciary is not taken account of, because that other one has a cadre of rising. Now, the political parties will have to sit and say, how do we structure it in such a manner that we do not have a combustion on the floor in a manner that it emerges without our control? You remember the Tambawa phenomenon. You know, the PDP had its plan to make the speaker go to the southwest, but the House had its own plan to make the speaker emerge from the floor. So they did not, stricto sensu, say, look, it's meant for southwest. Tambawa was not elected because he was from the southwest. Tambawa was elected because the members of the House wanted their leader to emerge from within them. Now, the kind of leadership that should allow for stability in the next assembly should be that where the political party in power, that's going to be in power, the All Progressives Congress, does not sit outside alone and say this will go here, this will go here, this will go here, without taking the elected members along. Now, if you take the elected members along, fill their pulse, look at the candidates, and then let it be that it has emerged from all the leaders of the party and from the membership of the party. Don't forget, and I credit the APC for one thing. All the members of all senators are members of their national, or members of the national executive of the party. And then there is a lot of respect given to elected members. Now, when you do this with them, you are likely to be able to be at one with the process of the people emerging. So that one, it may be the first test that the All Progressive Congress will have to face. So that it does not, because if you on your own are not able to work with your leadership, such that the members, the legislature are at one with the party, I think you may start having problem. But at the same time, a lot should be done to allow the members of the legislature itself choose their leadership while you also participate minimally. Now, when that happens, you are going to have a very peaceful legislature. And do not forget that there is the third force, that the minority party, the incoming minority party, will not be folding their hands, because they will vote. And so every calculation should be done to make sure that the combustion is avoided on the floor. But this is not something that will be really gotten right on the television.
Well, it might indeed be the litmus test. You think this shouldn't just be about rewards? Because, like I said, most of what we're hearing from outside now, it's all about rewards. We deserve to be given this. We voted this. We have suffered insurgency, so we deserve to get a finger in the pie, so we must have a principal officer. We have been left out of the scheme of things. It's now time for us to be rewarded with the office of a principal officer in the House or in the Senate.
Well, I think that equitable sharing is desirable to a lot of people.
So it's not, it still has to be sharing, whichever way you look at it.
No, equitable, but I also think that the emergence of the leadership of the legislature goes beyond that. And I'm of the
beyond
opinion,
zoning.
yes, goes beyond that. Because I think that for you to have a stable democracy that is growing, you must have credible leaderships at the helm of the affairs of both houses. Now, hitherto, and I speak for the House of Representatives, hitherto the House of Representatives was very notorious for its turbulent nature. But because we've elected from amongst us, and let's not forget that we're acting well within the confines of the Constitution, because constitutionally it says that they shall from amongst themselves elect their leaders. Now, in the Tambuwal situation, we elected a legislator's legislator to be our leader with absolutely no interference. And if you watch the tide of the House of Representatives in the last 4 years, it was smooth sailing, there was stability.
But it wasn't in tandem with what the party in power wanted.
It wasn't in
Didn't that set the stage for some kind of wranglings that were later to
No, it didn't, because what it did was that it deepened our democracy. Because, you know, there's separateness. It's 3 arms of government, but there's the doctrine of separation of powers. It showed us to be a people where our democracy was starting to grow. That from amongst us, we elected our own leader. Now, the yardstick for electing our leader were someone who was fair, someone who was competent, someone who had experience, someone who had stamina, someone who was detribalized, someone who, to the best of our knowledge, was going to have the House of Representatives as his core constituency, not varied interest political groups, and he was a legislator's legislator, he was our prolocutor. And so those were the things that threw up Aminu Waziri Tambuwal. And moving forward, it is our belief that having set the stage, and it was an experiment that has worked, and we don't see any reason why we should not go that way again.
All right, so we could as well just extend it a little further and say perhaps this should even cross party affiliations and party lines. That you don't necessarily have to produce, for instance, the Speaker of the House from the party that has the majority or the Senate President. What do you think about that?
Well, maybe in the near future, but not now.
Why not now?
Because it's a tradition. You see, once you have the majority, because it's a number, you see, in democracy is a matter of number.
Right.
And the assumption is once you have the higher number, automatically you have the higher chances of producing a speaker. It's a tradition. But what I'm saying is that I would like to support what my distinguished senator has said with regard to the issue of the need for the party and the legislators to come together depending on the force of the legislators in order to zone, even if we are considering the zoning arrangement. So that because in a situation where there's a mistake, like what happened in the 7th Assembly.
Was it a mistake?
Yeah, it was a mistake, because how can somebody that had only three PDP members in the whole zone, I say the speaker should come from that zone? That was the beginning of the Tambuwal saga. It was a mistake. Okay. So we just pray and hope that it's not going to repeat itself, because there's a lot of agitation now, where people from the same people from another zones are still agitating for the speakership or for the Senate President. But definitely we have to be loyal to our party. We have to wait for the zone arrangement. But so far, the politics is still on. It has been on. There are a lot of groups. Everybody is going to be either a Senate President, Deputy Senate President, and there's a lot of alignment. Within the
now it gets more interesting.
Well, let me tell you one thing. In parliamentary practice, there is nothing absolutely that dictates the fact that the leadership of the presiding officer must come from either the majority or minority party. Yeah. You see, there is one fundamental thing that people don't understand about parliament. Parliament has no religion. Parliament has no region. Parliament is one parliament dedicated to the upliftment of the liberty of the citizens of that particular country. Right. Now, let me tell you, if anything, the issue of Tambuwal redefines the fact that the issue of zoning, or who becomes the principal officer of the 2 chambers of the National Assembly, has nothing whatsoever to do with stability of the zoning formula in both the 2 parties. Rather, what it did is to put a precedence in this country to show that Parliament is not concerned with the intricacies of balancing national geopolitical interest. You understand? What the parliament exists for is the upliftment of the liberty of its citizens.
So, with that in mind, would you push the frontiers and cross the party lines and say it doesn't necessarily matter, since it's not a constitutional matter? Hey, it's a tradition.
I will want to say that with respect. I think that may be very.
It's only conventional. He knows that it is only conventional. Look, so only conventional that. Look, it's conventional that in a parliament where the majority belongs to a particular party, if a candidate comes out from that party, the assumption is that the party whip will whip them into line to be able to bring somebody from that party. Now it makes it easier for that party to sell its manifesto on the floor of the parliament.
I agree.
It's only, but that convention has no place whatsoever in the constitution or in the rules of the Senate. And don't forget that every member, upon taking the oath of office, is only bound by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the law, and the rules of the Senate. And if the three documents have not provided for zoning of political party office and all the rest, you should know that that is completely outside the realms of what the parliament anticipates.
Exactly. So I'm saying, if a scenario of that nature played out, would you push for extending the frontiers? Honorable Babangida Madufashi doesn't seem to think so. He says now's not the time. What do you say?
It's an opinion, but I think we should live above that at this level of our democratic setup.
Senator, would you push the frontiers and go beyond party affiliation?
I want to say that in the Tambuwal scenario, who are the team that made Tambuwal the speaker? It was a combine of the PDP, Northwest, and the ACN. And so there was alliance, which brought about this. And then some members of the PDP agreed to vote for the expected candidate of the PDP. And others said, look, we want the legislature to invent itself. This is still PDP. And so they voted for the Tambuwal. And all we're saying is that the party should be able to put its people together. Because if you're not able to do that, then something may happen. That is what I mean by the party is not just the party leadership, but the caucus of the party elected members.
You don't seem to agree with that.
Has the Tambuwal issue worked for the nation or not? That's the most important.
It has worked for parliament, it has worked for the nation.
Thank you. So if it has worked for the nation and parliament, why do you want to debate from it?
That's what I'm saying. There was that alliance.
To put it in a much simpler term. To put it in a much simpler term.
All of them got together.
What if the legislators of the 8th Assembly, let's say the House of Representatives, for instance, and what if the members, after interacting among themselves, find out that there is one with such sterling qualities as you described earlier on, which led to the election of Tambuwal as Speaker, in spite of what the PDP said then? What if among the legislators they found this one legislator with sterling qualities, who's neither of the PDP nor the APC, and so let's put him up as the presiding officer? Would you go for that?
Would it be within the confines of the law?
It's not a constitutional matter. It's just a convention here.
Would it be within the confines of the law? Would it be within the dictates of the Constitution? Would it be within the rules of the House?
Right.
And if it conforms to the three, why not?
Right.
Because, we swore to defend, protect, and uphold the Constitution. And unless it is outside the dictates of the Constitution, then you would be well within your rights if the person had sterling quality.
The valid question to ask is whether the Tambuwal experiment has worked or not. And if it did, then it should redefine the way the parliament functions in this country. And I think that for us to begin to draw here and there, it's a disservice to the country. More so when it is in a country that has desire, you understand, to propel its citizens on the path of patriotism and service to the country.
Okay, we raised this question because we're trying to look at the pattern that the 8th Assembly, the leadership pattern in the 8th Assembly, and like Senator Itainang alluded to, this may be a test for the incoming APC, because for the first time it will have to decide how to share, because that's what it's all about. And as I said already, we have all kinds of groups pushing for all, and that might eventually decide what that assembly will turn to. Senator,
if anything, Cyril, this kind of cleavages, I can call them, is what draws the nation back.
Right.
And let me be honest with you, with due respect to the party that left office, this is one of the solid points that pulled that party into extinction. I'm telling you. See, leaders must be bold enough in this country to begin to tell people that Nigerians are one in practical terms. You understand? But when you as a leader begin to take certain steps that apparently divide the people, and then at the back of it, you are calling for a united Nigeria, I think there is a huge contradiction here. And if anything, the parliament should be the platform from which you can fuse this country as one. I've been to Itainang's constituency. Yeah. I am more at home in his constituency.
Yeah.
I have friends. I sleep there. So I don't understand. Why must it be that now it is time to produce a Senate president? And then Itainang will say, well, for the purpose of making sure that we are not cheated out, let that president come from Akwa Ibom. That is not, in fact, it's not even anticipated by the Constitution. I told them last, was it day before yesterday, when we were doing the course, a lot of people were wondering, why is it that Nigeria is the only democratic country where the parliament is allowed to alter the budget presented by the executive? And I told them that is what the Constitution did in order to accommodate a situation where no one president will be allowed to abuse his office, aware of the fact that the parliament cannot alter budget, will put substantial amount of money into developing its own constituency, leaving the others there. And that's why the parliament is allowed to alter the budget in such a way that the national interest is reflected.
Yeah. Okay. There's one fundamental question we didn't ask. Yeah. Were there consequences of the action of putting Tambol as a Speaker of the 7th Assembly?
Was there?
Yeah, a lot of consequences, because the type of cooperation we were supposed to be given by the executive was not there.
Right.
We suffer a lot of...
But the legislature...
But what I'm saying is that the legislators, there has to be a cooperation between the legislators and the executives. But that cooperation was not there.
No, I mean, basically, I think that we've really tooled and froed on this issue. I think what is most important is what is the kind of legislature we expect in a time of dramatic change.
Happen after?
You know, I think that is really what we should be talking about. I think that, you know, our legislature should go way beyond. Yes, the leadership is important, but here we are on the threshold of another government that has campaigned on the platform of change, and Nigerians have bought into that agenda of this new government. And so the question is, what do Nigerians expect from this legislature in this time of dramatic change? What are the expectations? What is the agenda that this 8th Assembly should be coming beyond where the leadership comes from, beyond who the leadership is?
Well, the leader is just one person.
In spite of who the leadership is, there must be something that this National Assembly is bringing to the table for Nigerians who are very expectant, because we are on the threshold of change. And I think that is really what the conversation should.
So that means it ought not to be like the 7th Assembly, where considerable amount of time and energy was spent on bickering over who should lead the House, both chambers, right? So that's the change we're talking about now. And in that context, we see that the 7th House of Representatives, for example, introduced, I'm not sure, that about 825 motions, I believe, and of which about 554, just a little over 554 or thereabouts, were referred to committees, and another 162 passed as resolutions. What happened to the outstanding motions?
Bills, so on. Now the little for the Senate. Now for the National Assembly, and where there are bills that have not been completed, it stands lapsed. Now the that will come to what is the agenda for the next legislature. I believe that the agenda for the next legislature will be set first upon the proclamation of the president after being sworn in, dissolving the present assembly. There will be another proclamation convening another assembly. When that assembly is convened on the day of the inauguration, it will first elect its two presiding officers, the speaker, deputy speaker, the senate president, deputy senate president. After that, it will be constituted. And don't forget, in the four previous occasions, it was a PDP president either succeeding himself or another PDP president elected to succeed another president. Now, this is one occasion in the last 16 years that an incoming president is from another political party, taking over from an outgoing president of another political party. Now, a lot of things will change. One, the manifesto of the party will dictate what the agenda will be. Second, the character of what I mean by character is not the behavior, is the character of the composition of each of the chambers. First, I expect that immediately after the proclamation and perhaps the president's request for approval of the number of special advisors to enable him start setting his listing, he will take a date with the National Assembly to address a joint session of the National Assembly. In that address by the president, he will set the agenda of what he will want to do. He will set what will be his priorities in relationship with the legislature, his priorities in power, in energy, in the petroleum sector, in finance, in agriculture, in industrialization, in foreign relations, and all the aspects. This is one document which will be the main and principal agenda setting that will define and also help set an agenda for the legislature, because when the president finishes that address, the legislature may take 1 week to debate. Each chamber of the National Assembly debate, make suggestions, make input, and say this the president thinks is not going to be the best for the country. This the president thinks is the best. And there will also be disputes, because the PDP, for instance, may want to find reasons to attack this thing, so that the proposal, so that it will be seen that at least the principle of that party was better than that. That done, then the legislature itself will now come and set, one, its agenda, two, its timetable, and then again it will also depend on what nature of bills are left behind. Then that legislature will now take off from there. If, for instance, we have before us the FCT budget, budget of the Federal Capital Territory. If we do not pass the budget of the Federal Capital Territory, one of the very first urgent things that the legislature will consider, upon it being represented by President Buhari, as it will then be, will be to consider that budget so that FCT can function. If we do not pass the petroleum industry bill, one of the that may be, but if we pass the petroleum industry bill, one of the actions will be to make sure that it functions and sets up. So those are the things that defines the agenda.
All right, we'll look at other issues that will define the agenda of the incoming 8th Assembly, but we'll take a short break here. Stay with us at NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back in just a moment.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Together, no matter where you come from, no matter your religion, we are one. Let's live together. Let's stop fighting each other. Let us live as one. It doesn't matter where you come from, your tribe or religion, man, woman or child. It doesn't matter who you are. Put Nigeria first. No matter where you come from, no matter your religion, we are one. Let's live together.
How can we
differences. Families have become refugees in their country. No matter our differences, show some understanding. No matter where you come from, no matter your religion, we are one. Let's live together.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Right, thanks for staying with us. Still NTA Tuesday Live. We'll start off this segment now by looking at the kind of relationship that the 8th Assembly should have with the executive. For a long time in the history of since the country returned to democratic rule, the relationship between the legislature and the executive had been sort of strained on many issues. What kind of relationship should we expect this time?
Well, I think that with our democracy growing in the way that it has started growing, the military overhang, wherein the executive arm of government was the only arm of government, and so they were a little hot under the collar when anybody asked them any questions with regards to policies, appropriations, certain laws, and the implementation of those laws. I think with time, that has been eroded, and people are starting to realize that with our democracy growing in the way that it's growing, that the National Assembly is here to stay. And so I find that the deeper and the longer your democracy lasts, the more accepting of each other that we are. Now, I also see that, Nigerians are also very politically aware, and you have constituencies out there that are taking more than a passing interest in what happens in the National Assembly. Now, they're not interested in our bickering. All they're interested is in us delivering to them good governance. Now, if what it takes is a lot of give and take, engagements where there is a professional way in which we oversight our laws, policies, and appropriations, a very, very committed way to the issue of lawmaking, then I see that there may be not as much friction as there used to be, because as the democracy grows, I also believe that, and everybody understands what his limitations are and what their core functions are, I think that, there will be less friction that there has been. Furthermore, I also think that, speaking generically, I mean, we've talked about what the agenda is likely to be, of course, foreign policy, we're talking about diversification, we're talking about, security, anti-terrorism, and so on and so forth. I believe that it is something that all Nigerians believe are at this point in time. We believe that that is where, and that is a platform under which the country voted in the government of the day. So I do not, probably in the implementation, there may be some friction, but it's likely to be minimal, because what we're going to do in the legislature, we have no choice in the matter, is that we're going to have to watch the ebb and the flow of the public interest and around that we will form our political opinions. So, you know, I don't foresee a lot of friction, except, of course, there may be disagreements in the way that these policies are implemented, but I think it would be purely professional. I don't see that there will be the friction that came, for instance, in 1999 and so on and so forth, when you know, people felt that the issue of separation of powers was disagreeing in very aggressive ways. I think that our democracy is growing and people are understanding what their limitations are, and I expect.
Well, the type of relationship we expect in the next government is the kind of relationship where both the executive and the legislature has to be honest with one another. They have to put at the back of their mind that we need to move Nigeria forward. You see, certain things that are flimsy, we should try as much as possible to avoid flimsy issues, where especially with regard to the issue of budgets, that's where mostly you have frictions. On the issue of oversight, that's mostly you have friction with the government.
Right, budgets and oversight. That's where you have all the.
And that is where people don't understand, and those in the executive do not understand the function of the legislature. The framework of governance is what is provided by the Constitution. What Nigerians are saying in that Constitution is that, look, you are our president, we trust you. The entire economy of this country, you are going to manage it. But we do not want to give you the money to manage it yourself. We have elected our representative who should see that what we have generated is being put to use in the best interest of the nation.
And in the manner they have
and in the manner that they have provided. That's what the Constitution is saying. And then the two of you, both the executive and the legislature, even having voted you, we are saying, look, we don't trust you. Come and tell us, whether as a Muslim or as a Christian, hold your Quran and the Bible and tell us that in the discharge of your duties, you will do justice to all manner of people. That is whether Igbo or Efik or Yoruba or whatever. And that you, as president, will not allow your personal interest to affect your official conduct and decision. This is where the friction is. It is all in the pursuit of personal interest. If the idea is for the service of the citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, why should there be conflict? But it is because somebody somewhere, and in most cases, we don't have problem with the executive per se. We have problem with the ministers he has appointed under him, who are, I don't have what to describe the level of psychopathy that they exhibit in the conduct of their offices.
Well, so it is the legislature that clears
those who we did not clear them for those offices. No. And when we clear them, we did not know they would behave that way.
And that is the one reason why we are saying that let there be a radical departure from the context of take a bow and go. I give people example. Hillary Clinton was a senator in the Senate of the United States of America. She was given appointment as Secretary of State. Look at what she went through to get confirmed. But here, by the mere experience of being a card-carrying member of a particular political party, your name is mentioned on the floor of the Senate, and then you are asked to take a bow and go, only to go back and be seen that you do not even possess the capacity to perform the function of the office you are being assigned to. So this is where we have problem, and this is where I think if there is desire to change, we should be able to have a government that will say, Cyril Stoba is nominated as Minister for Information. Portfolio. Then Senate confirm from us whether he possesses the capacity. That's what the screening is all about. The screening is intended to look at the records of the person nominated to see whether he possesses the capacity to perform the function of the office to which he is assigned. Because Nigerians do not want wastages. So I used to have this saying by Sultan Bello. The most abhorred and remote from God is a tyrannical ruler. Whosoever commits oppression is caused by God, and giving authority to those unfit for it is oppression. And that is what happened. You continue to give people appointments that they cannot do, and then you are oppressing the country. And that is what we saw, as a reflection of what they did in just concluded election.
The best way that the executive is going to have a good relationship with the legislature is to appoint and keep ministers who act within the law and who respect the opinion of the legislature and who respect their oath of office. For instance, we've been having very serious issues with the Minister of Finance. For instance, now the there is a provision in the law that excess crude accounts cannot be used except in a manner provided by the National Assembly. As of today, in the last 4 years, okay, let me call it 3, after we passed the budget on the basis of either $73 per barrel or $79 per barrel, oil will sell at $108 per barrel. We will not know what she has done with the excess crude. And we will be shouting. They will say, oh, it came from the World Bank. She came from the World Bank. She knows. And Minister of Petroleum, how much, what quantity of oil do we have? Some of them are even, when we want to ask in the legislature, come and tell us, they say, it's not, it's a Minister of Finance. You ask, you had a governor of the central bank who behaved in a manner that was very, very unacceptable. He's my friend, but he was behaved in a manner that was unacceptable. Then we have the Attorney General. Now, there are many matters which are matters which the legislature ought to do. He will advise, look, don't. Like, for instance, we've been having issues of treaties. Now, these treaties, we've quarreled and quarreled that since 2009 or 2008, none of the treaties that Nigeria has signed is a state party. These are matters which are capable of causing the friction between the president and the legislature. And when the executive, when the ministers act as if they are presidents themselves. There are one that I used to call is like prime minister. You know, he acts as if the president is under her. So the president, for a president and a government to succeed and have a good relationship with the legislature, you have to periodically take up every month what are the issues that the legislature or the public has raised about you. What are the issues that you have answered? What are your answers to it? And has it been in accordance with the law? The president must periodically, monthly or in every 3 months, assess and reassess the performance of the minister in each of the sectors. And if they raise the smallest amount, the smallest allegation of misuse of power, misuse of funds, yes, you must act, you must respond immediately. Take the question of is it $20 million or $20 billion, something like that. You know, why are we? These matters were raised early enough before Sanusi resigned, and it was an issue. It became a matter the Senate had to take account of. It became a matter that the auditors were appointed. It became a matter. Now it is only of recent that we're beginning to have some documents come. So these are things that the legislature will always cause problem between the executive and the legislature. The legislature does not invent problem. The legislature responds.
You did by asking those who you should screen to take a bow and leave the chamber without establishing their capacity to observe the rules of the game.
And it was not.
Yes, so you created the problem.
The ministers come to be screened and were taken.
No, but you can't even screen.
No, the minister under the constitution is nominated for appointment as a minister of the federal.
And left.
No, it depends on.
Would you now push, with the benefit of hindsight,
yes,
would you now push for portfolio specific?
No, it cannot be. It cannot be. The constitution does not allow it, because when you nominate somebody, you are nominating for screening for appointment as a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, and if the president can come see you as Attorney General, then he has 2 or 3 persons who are capable of being it. In the course of it, something happens, he assigns you to Foreign Affairs or to Power, and gets another person to be in that office of Attorney General. So he doesn't need to come to screen again. That also goes for finance. That also goes for any office. No, because you are not screened for office specific.
You don't agree with that?
Yes, I think I disagree with you. The necessary intendment of the Constitution is for the president to nominate ministers with their portfolios. But in the course of the performance or function of their office, if he discovered that Italian is more useful in solid minerals, he does the transfer without necessarily having to come back to the Senate. But for the purpose of determining whether somebody possesses the capacity to perform the function of the office is giving, we should know the office.
Yes.
All right.
I think that is, even if that is expeditious, I mean, even if that is reasonable, but you have to do what the Constitution allows, because the Constitution did not provide
if you say
to
that
allow for you have to.
Yes, that I agree.
That
but
of the Constitution doesn't allow.
All right. Now, it's been sometimes in the past, former members of the legislature had been appointed as liaison between the National Assembly and the legislature and the executive. How did that help to smoothen the affairs?
Let me tell you another issue that is a huge mistake. If you appoint a principal officer of either of the two houses as a liaison officer, having served in that capacity as a leader, he has earned the respect of members of the National Assembly, and he knows, he possesses the experience that is required to be able to know what is to be done at what time and how it is to be done. Itaenang knows all these intrigues. We sit down to do it with him. But you see, when a member of the House of Reps is leaving the House of Reps by a party that has made him, voted him, you know, maybe did some wahala for him to refuse to pass primaries, and therefore he has that grudge, and then you bring him back and say he should relate to his colleagues. Hey, it doesn't make sense. Let us ask all these questions. That's why I told you there were so many things that were done by that party, I don't want to mention name, that were gradually creeping it, you know, from ground until it failed. And if the APC as a party wants to survive for the purpose of rendering quality service to Nigerians, they must avoid the pitfalls.
They must study the pitfalls and avoid it.
I think on the issue of National Assembly liaison, I think that position was established in order to advise the executives on the workings of the National Assembly. So that if there's any friction or certain things, they should be able to advise the executives. I think the office of the liaison can be maintained, but just like he said, the type and the caliber of persons that will be a liaison is very important.
Sorry, Siri. That office is specifically intended that, okay, the executive will say, please, we want to do this, and we require the legislature. With the hint of experience that you have as a legislature, how do we go about it? Is it going to be by way of motion? Are we going to call the leader of the Senate or the House? How then he will tell them, well, this is the way to do it. Maybe, like Itaenang will always say, since it is controversial, bring it after 2 o'clock. When the chamber will have gone out.
Don't reveal a secret. Don't reveal it.
But such traditions may not necessarily improve the working relationship between the executive and the legislature, based on an example that he gave.
No, like I said, I mean, you know, the friction that comes in, you know, like everybody has pointed out, is basically between the National Assembly and the appointees of the president. And, you know, the liaison person's job primarily is to advise the executive. He's the largest lobbyist of the executive on the floor of the parliament. And because he has reach with his colleagues or former colleagues, it makes it easier to lobby his colleagues in the interest of the executive arm of government. And I think that it makes for smooth working relationship. But it doesn't take away from the fact that a lot of the appointees of the Mr. President are too busy keeping their jobs to do their work, and you know that is the problem that we
I think another problem, the most important thing that the liaison officer should be able to do is to make sure that he tracks bills and measures on the floor. That's number one. Number two, he should be able to advise Mr. President on the kind of communications that should come to the legislature. For instance, there is pending before us for over 5-8 months now, and we've been raising it, a communication seeking to appropriate funds, either I think the police fund or something, by way of a letter. And the law is that if anything you need that seeks to appropriate money should come by way of a bill. Now, what the liaison officer should be able to advise is, you cannot do this as by way of a letter making a request. you have to make it by way of a bill doing this. And then a liaison officer is not somebody that, like a lot of them did, is just to carry rumors from here to there. Exactly. They want to impeach this, they want to impeach this, they want to impeach you, they want to, because part of it is that they create fear in the executive so that you lose focus on in the job that you should do, chasing shadows. Again, the liaison officer should be able to relate and have personal relationship with the principal officers, with members, and create like an addendum with legislature, such that if they have any issue they have, if they can pass through their presiding officer or something, they can pass through you. A liaison officer should also be able to liaise and find out what are the challenges of the respective senators, the respective zone, the respective blocks, in terms of even budgetary allocations. Are there areas and things that a particular zone is quarreling that is going to cause problem between them and the president, and then it causes it to be addressed? And when a bill comes, you follow up. What stage is this bill? What stage is the other one? Mr. President, this bill, is there any other? Has it come before? Is there? And then you follow up pari passu and in the flow of each chamber, and then you are able to find manage the pulse of the president and the presidency on how urgent respective bills and measures are, because there are some of them that are time relevant. If, for instance, the president is declaring a state of emergency and he has each of these things relating to state of emergency are timelined, and when he makes the declaration, he publishes the gazette, it is for you to run around to the principal officers of each of the respective chambers, make them know what to because they know what to do. Please prop them, arrange a meeting with the president, let him get the real urgency, convene the house, follow it up, and also prop them as to the timing of it. So these are the kind of things that the liaison officer is to do, and it should be professionally oriented.
Let me tell you how other parliaments function in respect of this office. What happens is the president wakes up in the morning and says, I'm interested in putting a bill before the National Assembly to prohibit civil servants from doing any form of contract or whatever. Then he says, okay, well, who are the floor leaders of the Senate? He has them by name and then number. And then he calls them in the morning and say, Mr. Itayanang and Nenna, can you please oblige me to have breakfast with me tomorrow? And then they get there, they sit down with the president and say, Nenna, we want to do this. And then from there, he will hear, and then with the chief of staff, they will all sit down. And then all notes will be taken, including the legal draftsman. How do we put it? How is it going to be? And then the arguments are taken there, and then the bill comes. So it's not going to be. It's not going to be as a surprise. In fact, you will be surprised that it is Nenna and Itayanang that will be selling it on the floor of the house. But rather, what we have is rather what we have is a situation where you just hear a communication coming from the president to the Senate president or to the speaker, and then inserted on the floor of the house. Now it's left on the table of the leader of that house, either leader of the house or leader of the Senate, to begin to look. Yes, and then he may not know anything about it. And then in most cases, when these communications come, they are referred to the Committee on Rules and Business. So it is the exclusive preserve of the Rules and Business Committee to look at the date that is convenient for, depending on the nature of that bill, and to put it. And in some cases, you can't believe it, we will schedule a bill for second reading, and then the leader of the house will stand up and say he wants it adjourned because he knows nothing about it.
And you will be going around, you look for the line minister and brief or brief the so that we can have, he may not even know. So things come without the knowledge of the persons who should know.
All right, in defining the rules of the liaison, you use the term chief lobbyist. Lobbying is an accepted norm in legislative affairs, but still keeping on the path of a lot of people not being aware of the exact nature of the workings of the legislature. Lobbying has taken a totally different meaning.
Exactly. Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. But let me tell you how it works on the floor of the parliament. You have a ruling party that has majority of the members, let's say in the House of Representatives. If there is anything that is contentious, what happens is that the caucus of that will call and say, okay, the president wants to do this, and we have sat down and look at it. We are asking for your comments. So the caucus will comment on that. When it does that, the whip of the House for that particular party is expected to whip every member into line for the purpose of pursuing that bill. Now, the fear now will now come from the other party that you cannot call into the caucus of the majority party. So now it is time to lobby them and say, well, our party wants to do this, and this is the way that is going to benefit the country. And we are sure that it's not going to be in any way, it's not going to contradict the manifestos of your party in any way. And we intend to schedule this for debate on Tuesday. In other parliaments, is the leadership, the majority leaders of the various parties that sit down to determine what is to be scheduled for the purpose of debate. You understand? So that no one person has control over what is to be scheduled for the purpose of debate, so that we will have a robust, arguments regarding what is happening in the country. But here, the ruling party will say, well, it's our exclusive preserve. We determine what should be slated for hearing or no. This one president will not be happy today, so don't do it. But we are not there on the invitation of the president. You are in the parliament because you are being elected in the parliament to represent the interests of the people who elected you. And so when you begin to do things that are not acceptable under given circumstances, so it becomes a problem.
With respect, just a little correction. If a matter is not in the interest, or is said not to be in the interest of the president, it does not disqualify that matter from being listed for discussion. It does not disqualify.
So we ask
in all honesty.
From what we see.
No, in all honesty, it doesn't. Because it's listed.
In the rules and business.
Yes.
So these are the issues you have noticed in the legislature. With that knowledge, with the benefit of that knowledge, how would you guide the 8th Assembly to avoid these things that you're talking about here now?
I think that in structure and in functionality, the 8th Assembly would have to be very, very revolutionary. And I think that, we must get to the place where we can't say that our democracy is growing and Parliament is growing without us doing it in the way that is done best. And I believe, like he suggested, that for matters to be slated on the floor of the Assembly, because we must also come to the agreement that across party lines, across ethnic lines, that the most important people are not, we don't want to see APC legislators or PDP legislators, we want to see Nigerian legislators. And so, at the end of the day, we must get to the place where we formulate rules, wherein all the leaders of all the political parties sit down and actually come and agree on what should be slated for agreement. And then I am of the PDP, which means that right now we're in the minority party, but we'll expect that we'll be lobbied with respect by our colleagues from the majority party, so that there's a robust conversation on the floor of the House in the way that we'll agree or disagree, but in the best interest of the generality of Nigerians.
So how do we now begin to correct the impression of what lobbying should be and what the majority of people out there think lobbying is?
Well, you see, this lobbying we are talking about, we are using it within the internal concepts of the National Assembly.
Yes, and quite a number of people still do not understand it, what it should be, the way it should be. They see lobbying.
I think let me take this question of lobby. The lobbying is effort to persuade persons who may not be of the opinion about a particular bill, measure, or any matter coming on the floor to see your own point of view and to support it. Sometimes you trade off. For instance, I give an example of what happened in year 2000 in the House of Representatives. When we had issues with President Obasanjo, and there was very strong need for us to pass the Niger Delta Development Commission bill. And there was the, later there came the onshore-offshore dichotomy abolition bill. Now, we found out, what were the challenge? The South-South found out, what were the challenge of the North? The North was solid minerals and power, HYPADEC, yes, Hydropower Development Commission. We now said, North, East, Northwest, North Central, support the South, East, Southwest. Let us pass the Niger Delta Development Commission bill. Let us override the veto of Mr. President, because President Obasanjo refused to sign. Now, we agreed on that, and the entire House voted and passed the Niger Delta Development Commission bill. That is why when you see that bill, in that act, you don't have the signature of the president. You have the next signature of Galina Abba and Oyi of Oyi, Chiba Okaribo as Senate President. That was effective lobbying. And when we had come through over the Niger Delta Development Commission, we now, as part of lobbying agreement, we now supported HYPADEC and then the development of the solid mineral sector. That is lobbying.
All right.
You know.
Just before you come in here, we have a call coming through from Yinka, I believe, calling in from Abuja. So go ahead, Yinka, if you're with us.
Hello. Hello. Please, I want to ask the Senate that I want to ask him to explain to the masses. You know, many people on the floor did not know the meaning of that lobbying. It seems that it is a kind of bribery in the act of humanity.
Right.
But in the act of law, so that it's an influence to create in order to win your opponent for better resolution. So they have to open to the masses and tell them exactly the reason and the meaning of that lobbying in order not to conflict issues.
All right. Thank you very much. And that's the process that's on right now. Tell us exactly what lobbying is, and if you keep listening, we would hear the views of our guests here. And Senator Itainang has just been talking about what lobbying should be, and hopefully we'll get to know what lobbying should not be.
Yeah.
All right, Honorable Nina, okay.
Lobbying.
What it should not be.
Lobbying should not be.
No, lobbying basically, like Senator Itainang has said, it's the ability to get someone who hitherto would probably not agree with your viewpoint to see things your way. Now, a lot of people, and I always will go back to what my big brother has said, that the National Assembly is one of the most misunderstood institutions. There's a certain law, and that is before the House of Representatives right now, and there's a citizen of Nigeria who has gone from house to house, has knocked on door to door, asking us and educating us on the merits of that bill. Now, I am not aware that a penny has exchanged hands. It's just been him explaining to us the necessity where that bill puts Nigeria in the eyes of the world, the amount of respectability that it brings to the country. And so he has conscripted a lot of us to be the people who are actually selling his bill on the floor of the House. Now that is lobbying.
I think what is more important, sorry.
Yes.
In the United States Senate and the House, there is already a law that established the institution of lobbying.
And we have it in the House.
And I don't know, I'm not aware that it has been passed, but I know we propose it alongside with the Freedom of Information Bill. You remember?
Yeah.
We did it deliberately, and I will tell you, there, even though the return rate of members is not very high, me and then now went to lobby the chairman House Committee on Transport when we wanted the Category 1 status of Nigeria to be given to Nigeria. The man spent 26 years as chairman of the House Committee on transport. You see? So, and let me tell you, he told first his secretary, briefed us before we even, she made way for us to see him. She did much more than half of the work that we were asking for. All we needed is to see him to say, well, we are here from Nigeria to lobby you to accept that all the conditions have been met for the issuance of Category 1 status to the and let me tell you, in that journey, we saw somebody who was 56 years old.
Okay, let's just take this call coming from Isaiah, calling in from Abuja. Isaiah, go ahead with a question or comment. Hello, Isaiah.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I want to speak on the ministerial appointment.
Okay.
Yes. Concerning the Senate-elect, Mukedi, what he said, that the appointment, if you want to appoint a minister, does not really legitimately mean that he or she must be qualified, or cannot judge a ministerial appointment based on qualification.
Okay.
Because if you look at Finance Minister, Dr. Iwela, is qualified in all qualifications. But if you look at the way he's handling the policy of Nigeria, you know that, yes, it's not by qualification, it's by individual. And the psychopath, the issue of psychopath related to what he's talking about. The woman needs serious to be addressed. Because most of her policy is what makes Mr. President to do this as good election. Therefore, based on the qualifications, individual. And the issue of taking a bow and go, it doesn't mean anything. You can take a bow and go. If you are good, you are good. If you are not good, you are not good. Okay. So it's not by qualification, it's by individual. Based on your individual. Qualification matters, but it does not mean that you must be qualified academically. You can handle ministerial appointment.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, so these are the issues we've been talking about, and yes, now we know what lobbying should be, what it is.
Let me just add something, just a very brief one to the lobbying thing. Lobbying is done also by way of public hearing.
Yeah.
When you come for a public hearing, you clarify issues which they may have been this thing. For instance, there is a bill on establishment of the electricity inspectorate, and I had opposed the bill very seriously on account of the fact that we have Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, and they came for public hearing. At the public hearing, I still opposed it. In fact, I attacked the Wakil, the Minister of State, that he was part of what when we passed the bill. But after the people made the presentation, I saw that there was need for us to get this function properly established away from this. Then this violence against persons bill. The women came as they had never come. They came. I must be very. Let me apologize to them. They came intimidating us at the public hearing. They came intimidating, and at a point, they almost packed my books. I had to cover the books. And the force with which they came, the argument, and of course, the passion, the stories they showed, the pictures they showed of what happens. I agreed that there are existing laws on the matter, but it's better for us to pass another law on it. I had to close my books so that we can pass it if it can address the situation. That is part of lobbying. It causes persons change their mind, even at the court of public hearing. Lobbying is persuasion.
Okay, let's hear from Aminu, who's calling in from Kaduna, I believe. Aminu from Kaduna, go ahead. Well, we lost that call. So, thanks so much for enlightening us on the issue of lobbying. And so, we would see that this is basically done through superior arguments and not
advocacy.
Not as general parlance. The public has come to misunderstand and say, lobbying necessarily.
Why are you running away from that?
Right, I didn't say that.
Don't dance around it. The belief of the public is that when you lobby, you are going to National Assembly with Ghana must go to give legislators money. That's the belief. Unfortunately, it's an erroneous belief,
Unfortunately.
So the 8th Assembly should watch out.
Unfortunately.
Well, we're winding down, but a number of tweets have come in here, and again, it borders on a misunderstanding of the role of the legislature and what it should do and what it stands for and what happens there. And I'll tell you, this issue of money in Nigerian politics is a recurring one. And so a couple of tweets here still refer to it. This is Chigozie McDum, and it says, can my senators explain why they have more house committees and allowances more than most countries of the world? That's one.
House committees.
Yes. And then we have another one that says, salary of the Senate and House of Reps must reduce by 50% if truly they want to help Nigerians. This is Olaoshun Hamzat who sent that in.
Some people want it to
and
by 80%.
all right. But even that, even the calls for a pay cut has even been advocated by some new members who are coming into the 8th Assembly.
I want to talk first about the issue of committees of the Senate and committees of the House.
Right.
I think sometimes these are determined by, these are normally done after the president perhaps may have appointed his ministers, structured the ministries. For instance, under President Yaradua of blessed memories, he abolished the ministry, he merged the Ministry of Water Resources with the Ministry of Agriculture. Then under the Jonathan presidency, there are some ministries which have been demerged and some have been created. Then it also depends on the structure of government and again some of the agencies that are existing. So sometimes determined by the minister. It is and it is how to make that particular legislature function more effectively. So the issue of House committees or Senate committees are very serious matters and they are done in the interest of the public. On issues of allowances, these are as recommended by the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, because the Constitution allows the National Assembly to fix the salaries and allowances of the President, Vice President, Justices of the Supreme Court, Chief Justice of the Federation and all of that, and allow the House of Assembly to fix that of the President, that of the governors. Yeah. But it doesn't allow them to fix for themselves. It doesn't even allow the President to fix for them. Yes. It allows the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission to fix for it. Now, there are, and it defines what car you will have. It also defines how many aides you will have. For instance, National Assembly, you have 5 aides as legislative aides from level 5 to level 14, 15. So these are not matters that are done by the legislatures for themselves. And all this, most of this will have to be raised with the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission.
And I want to add, you see, on the issue of the salary, our salary in the National Assembly is not different from the salary of public officers or those in the civil service. We are operating the same salary scale structure.
Yeah.
So the question of asking the salary of legislators to be reduced by half is very, very unfair. Because if you reduce the salary of a legislature by half, it's as good as asking level 8 officer or a director in the civil service to just wake up one day and say you are reducing salary by half. It's not possible.
All right.
Well, let me tell you what determines salaries and allowances of parliamentarians. Under a presidential system like the one we operate, and more specifically under a multicultural society like the one that we operate, you see, your fundamental function as a legislature is, after disbursing public funds to the various agencies of government, is to ensure that those funds are used in accordance with the way that the law prescribes that they should be used. And that's where the question of oversight comes in. I don't know whether you understand. Yeah. Yeah. So in order to isolate the member from getting involved in not doing his job that he is being elected to do, he is expected to be comfortable enough, you understand, to be able to perform that function. But the Constitution still goes ahead to say, look, despite this, we are not even going to allow you to fix it for yourself. We have established an institution called, a constitutional institution called the Revenue Mobilization, Physical and whatever allocation, allocation exactly, to do that for you. And that is without any interference from the legislature, and it's not even subject to approval by the legislature
or the executive,
or the executive. So they sit down and say, well, as far as we are concerned, based on what we have seen, based on the prevailing circumstances, based on what we have provided for, because we are not alone, this is what we consider to be reasonable as a take-home pay for members of the House of Reps and that of the senators. And the account is taking of the fact that in a state you may find out about 8 House of Representative members, and the Constitution makes provision for only 3 senators in that particular state. You understand? So all these things are taken into account. I am not an advocate of whether salary code or whatever. I don't care what happens as far as allowances or whatever are concerned. What is important is that there is a determination to bring change in this country, and no amount of sacrifice in whatever form is going to come should be big enough for every responsible Nigerian to swallow. But at least the necessary intent of the Constitution must be respected by those who gave us the Constitution to operate.
All right, we have a call coming through from Lagos, I believe. Theophilus from Lagos, go ahead.
Yes, good morning.
Yes.
Actually, I'm excited by the discussion. But what is really disturbing is that it does appear that some of our National Assembly members are really dispatched from the masses. If you find out that recently we were told that even the governors cannot even afford to pay the minimum wage of 15,000 as compared to what they themselves are earning. I mean, it's hiding under the cloak that the Revenue and Mobilization Committee are the ones that set up their destiny. I mean, they're in a position to be able to adjust those things so that at least the commoners can equally have a sense of belonging. You know, that is why we elected them. So it will not be fair for them to continue to hide under such a cloak, hide the masses that they are representing really not having the dividends of them. We are talking of a higher cost of running of government. And they should also consider cutting their distance, a monument, so as to make sure that the nation is actually on the right footing. So that is how I feel about the whole thing.
All right, thank you very much. Yes,
well, I mean, you know, I agree with him that if as we go into this new dispensation, and no secret has been made of the fact that we're going into a period of belt tightening, and we must sacrifice, and we must trim down the size and the cost of governance. And I believe that we are part of government, and that's cut across board is one that the National Assembly, I'm sure, is not averse to if it is in the interest of the country.
And let me even tell Theophilus that as of today, the National Assembly budget has been reduced by 25%. And the budget, about 30%.
I think what is important is the fact that do we have the power to do what he's asking us to do under the Constitution that we have sworn to uphold, protect, and defend? Do we have the power to interfere with the way the Revenue Mobilization runs its office? The answer is no. But from where he comes from, there is a representative in this committee, and he has access to go to that person and say, look, what you people did by allocating this to members of the National Assembly, in my opinion, is wrong. And can I find justification for what you have done? There is freedom of information.
What would be wrong if unanimously? What would be wrong if unanimously all the members of the National Assembly and the executive decide and not make this a strictly constitutional matter and say because we want to do this? That would be that would amount to breaching the Constitution, would it?
Yes, Siri, let me tell you.
So accepting a court would be breaching the Constitution.
Yes, the most dangerous thing a society can do is to allow somebody who is bound by the envelope that has been prescribed for him by the same public to go outside it. For example, if for the purpose of satisfying them, the House of Representatives and then the Senate comes together and say, okay, we have accepted 20% cut in our salary, or 40 or 50 or whatever. You understand? Contrary to the fact that they know that they cannot interfere with the findings of the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission. Then next tomorrow, you know what they will tell you? Having given us lead to go outside the envelope you have prescribed for us in respect of this matter, we are going to look at another matter again and go outside the envelope. So you have no control.
So we have to wind down this discussion here, and we wind down with two very interesting comments. They're linked somehow. It was where we started from when we talked about the kind of leadership to expect in the 8th Assembly. And this one from Mustafa Sadiq. And he says, I'm advising the National Assembly to try by all means to defy imposition of leaders on them, either by zoning or godfatherism. And the other one, of course, on a lighter note, and I believe, yes, I found this one, and this one goes to Honorable Nina Ukeje, and it's from J. Adams. And he says, for Nigeria's sake, APC should push for Representative Nina Ukeje's election as Speaker.
Congratulations. Unfortunately, none of us here is a member of the House of Representatives except my brother and friend. So that is their job. But what surprises me is that nobody has tweeted to say you people are a bunch of thieves or whatever, the way we hear them on the pages of newspaper, and then it gives you cause to laugh and say, well.
All right. Yes. Well, it is on that note we'll have to leave this discussion. We'd like to say a big thank you to all our guests, Senator Itai Nang, Chairman, Senate Committee on Rules and Business.
Thank you very much, Nigerians. Thank you very much, and I pray that we all prepare for the big change.
Right. Honorable Nina Elendu Ukeje, Chairman, House Committee on Foreign Affairs. It's a delight having you here.
Thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Okay, and let us also say big thank you to Honorable Babangida Malumfashi, a member on the committee, member of the Committee on Finance.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, and for Senator-elect Bala Ibn Allah, it's a pleasure to see you again after quite a while.
I went on holidays.
All right.
A rewarding one, eh?
Okay, so
yes.
Now you're back in the National Assembly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on this program. Thank you. And for all of you who've been with us on tonight's program, I'd like to say a big thank you to those who sent in their views and called in to contribute to this program. Thank you once again for being part of it. Next week, we'll reach you again on NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.